Hello and welcome to Binge of the Week. I am Sonia, aka Binge of the Week. This week's episode is Animal Kingdom of the Hill. I write these titles just to amuse myself, let's be honest. But it did make me think of that game, King of the Hill. You know when kids try to be king of the hill by standing at the top of the hill and trying to knock each other down off the hill? So, Animal Kingdom. Here we are. This is my second episode, so maybe I don't know if I still need to do an intro about myself. I'm a production dork. I love storytelling. I'm a photographer. I love movies and TV. Worked in the industry a bunch. Yeah, and I like to podcast and post about what I'm watching when I'm thinking about what I'm watching. And I do that a lot. That's all. And this past week, I binged all of Animal Kingdom, which I didn't realize until the end. 75 episodes. It's a good thing I no longer do podcasts that are episode by episode. I thought Merlin was a lot. For the Love of Merlin was the podcast name. That was my first podcast. It was, I think, 67 episodes by the end. This would be a lot. So we won't go episode by episode. It's possible that I would do 2 episodes about Animal Kingdom. Today we're going to focus on Pope. Pope Cody. That's what I want to talk about. And not just Pope Cody in the sense of let's talk about what Pope does and who he is. But really, for me, when I watch TV or movies, what I really need to be into something, to be devoted enough to binge 75 episodes in 6 days, I need to root for somebody. I need to have somebody that I am all in for. I want them to win more than anybody else. And it doesn't even have to be the main character. But I do run into shows or movies where my problem is I don't have an emotional in through a character I'm rooting for. And that happened a couple weeks ago. I might have mentioned it last week on the podcast. For All Mankind was doing that to me. I couldn't find someone to root for, and I eventually did, but it took a while, and I wasn't crazy all in on them, and it's also there's just a lot of characters on that show. So yeah, I do need that. I can get into something, I'm very visual, I can get into something a lot for the visuals and cinematography of something, but really for an emotional attachment to watching something, especially something this long, it definitely does need to have some sort of character that I'm on their team. And for All Mankind, when I started saying these things, I got a lot of reactions about how it's because the characters are complex and they're not just good guys. And it's that's so not what likable is to me. It's not what rooting for is for me. I think I love Veep, and I'm rooting for Selena, and I like her even though she's awful. She's the worst. She's a monster. And I like her so much. I enjoy her so much. She knows who she is. She goes after the thing. I want her to get the thing, even though, God, she's awful. It's not about being good. And that's totally represented here in Pope Cody. He is not good. He is good. I mean, in this thesis, I will argue, I do think he's good, but it's not simple. It's very complex, but it's so well executed. And I think it comes down to the writing and acting always, but some shows more than others, the split is not always 50-50. I will say I came to this show via Sean Hattasy because I was binging The Pit, and I do like to follow actors from one show to another. I will sometimes, once a year, I will do a deep dive and do someone's entire filmography. I think the last time I did it was Kevin Costner, which is funny to bring that up because I will be bringing him up again in a minute. But yeah, I think it kind of relates to that because actors, even if they don't get typecast or play the same type, it can be something that links them, whether it's the quality of their performance or how they approach characters, or whether, I don't know, it's their agent is good and gets good scripts. It doesn't matter what the thing behind the scene is driving their career, but it can be that an actor gives me that thing over and over again where I can root for them from all of their works for some reason, whatever that reason may be. So I gave this a shot because people were like, oh, if you're enjoying this, like you should go watch Animal Kingdom, which somehow I had never heard of it 2 weeks ago. Like that's crazy to me because it's a 6-season run. I'd never heard of it. Kind of sad. So I turned this on and right away it's giving Sons of Anarchy meets Shameless, which I don't want to be reductive. That's just how my brain works, is that like it wants a comp. And it's kind of reductive, but I actually think when I get through this podcast, it will make even more sense than just like a reactionary take of the first few episodes, because it is what's happening is like there's this crime drama, this TNT crime drama is happening. It's a heist show, it's crime family. And then there's Pope, and he's very much at the crux, at the center of this whole story. But for me, he kind of stands apart in a way, and not in a bad way. It's just that there's an elevation of the whole show happening for me, where you have this like Sons of Anarchy show, probably a little less prestige than a Sons of Anarchy if you remove Pope. But then Shameless to me is more prestige level writing when it comes to character work. It's a show that I think I watched for 1 season, maybe 2, and I had to stop because it was just so gutting all the time. I was just so sad that I was like, I can't take this, actually. It's very, very good. It's not a critique. That was just like, I was not in a place where I could handle how heavy that show was at the time. But it's like having a Shameless level character in a crime drama TNT show. And I have no derogatory or pejorative statements about it being a TNT crime drama. I think everyone did an excellent job. The show is excellent for that level of show. But then when you get the Pope character, there's just something that happens, a little bit of TV magic, where it starts to elevate things past that level, where one thing can just start to bring it up a whole notch. And this is why I wanted to mention Costner, because I feel that way about Yellowstone. Yellowstone's a little complicated for me. I have not seen season 5. I refuse. I'm boycotting. I think I really love seasons 1 through 3, and I kind of enjoyed 4. Doesn't matter why. What I really want to talk about is that I think Costner elevates the whole show. And there you've got like the talent of an actor taking everything up a notch, where I actually don't think that is an even split with writing and acting. I think you've just got like 20% writing, 80% acting is making that happen, where the jump up in level for the show happens because Costner is just that good. I think that's the show that made me realize how great Costner is. And that's funny because I grew up in the era of Costner movies, and he was always great, but I don't think I noticed it until I saw him in a show where he was just like so much more than everything around him. Now, I'm not saying that that's what's happening on Animal Kingdom. I think it's a more even split on Animal Kingdom. I think they're writing a special character in this world, and it's being acted very, very well. Like, I do think this character wouldn't have been able to do this in the hands of a lesser actor. But I do think the writing is doing the work as well in this scenario. And it kind of made me think also of Merlin. And on that show, Colin Morgan was the lead. I think it was his first big job. And I know the writers there started to write more complicated things because they saw how great he was. So it kind of unleashed this level of like, oh, we can push this even further because of how much this guy can do. I don't know if that happened on Animal Kingdom. I don't know the chicken and egg sort of scenario there. You know, Sean Hattassy's been around quite a bit more than Colin Morgan was when he did Merlin. So, and I know my understanding is that the producers already worked with him because I think there's a lot of crossover from another show, Southland, that I have not seen. And I also did not ever hear about until a week ago. But there's definitely this leveling up that's happening, in my view, both in the writing and the acting of this character. They're pulling off this thing of this really complex, fully internally realized, like, this guy is so clear, but so crazy layered. He's somehow simultaneously the scariest and the gentlest. He's the protector, the caretaker, and yet, due to the abuse that he suffered, he's the weapon, the mental health crisis that he could snap at any second. I mean, in that first episode, he's straight up creepy. I do wonder what level of David Michaud, who was the director of the movie this is based on, played in that, because I think he had probably more to do with the pilot than the show. I might be wrong. I did very cursory research about that because I didn't want to get too bogged down, but it felt like they were going straight creepy in the pilot, and then it just started to evolve more and more. And interestingly, like, further away, every time a step further away from the character in the movie, which is like this menacing, scary dude who doesn't have like a mental health crisis. But yeah, I think what Sean Hannity is doing, what the writing is doing, is creating this scary, gentle dichotomy that is so fascinating to watch, where at any moment he could kill somebody, but really left to his own devices, what he does is protect and care for people he loves, or he's even just a gentle person to strangers, which ultimately leads to his downfall. If you've gotten this far and I haven't been clear, spoiler warning, I'm going to say it all. It's all out there. Doesn't matter. Don't stick around if you don't want to know how it ends. And I think it's not just him giving himself up at the end for his brothers, but how the detective gets him is that he's nice to this kid who needs help. And she's pretending to look for him and he's helping her, and she drops the phone in the car. Like, there's just, via Amy and the blackmail there's just all this goodness in this character, and we all see it. It's even devastating when he confesses to murdering Kath with Amy, and I think it's hard for me who's this rational person of like, yeah, no, if I were a woman dating a man in this real world and he was like, by the way, I suffocated this woman to death with a pillow, I'd be like, great, get out of my house. I'm calling the cops. But in the reality of the show and rooting for this character, and I am fiercely loyal to characters I root for. I don't even care if I thought he was wrong. And of course he's wrong to murder Kath. It's not right to kill anybody, but in this fictional crime world where I'm seeing him do this act, which he doesn't want to do, to me, killing Kath is the last thing he wants to do. It's the manipulation from Smurf. It's the thinking he's protecting the family. And then I think really Kath puts the final nail in her own coffin by trying to use sex and love to manipulate him into not killing her, which I think just makes him snap even further, because that is exactly what Smurf does. So I think it just touches this nerve of like sex and love and manipulation. And he's so clear. Like, for someone who has fugue states and is mentally unstable, this character is so painfully clear about what's happening to him and around him all of the time. Like, by the time we meet him, he's clear that his mother is manipulating him. He's clear that he can't be around her. He does fall into the trap with Kath and all these things, but usually very, very clear about how people are treating him, what's being said to him. In fact, the first thing that made me cry in this show was when he was in the car with Angela right after the NA meeting, Narcotics Anonymous. She says, "You hate me now." He says, no one ever tells me the truth. He's painfully aware of these things. And that line, I mean, I'm going to give it up to Sean on that one. Because that line, again, the writing's good. But anyone could deliver that line and make it very not impactful. I literally cried. It was just, it killed me. And in that same episode, I think there's a lot of things that happen with Sean's delivery. Maybe they're not all in that episode, but I think most of them are. There's a conversation with Angela before that about she's not Julia. You can't have second chances, because he's clearly trying to save Angela as a proxy for failing to save Julia. And he's so childlike. I think that's what people love about him the most, probably. The innocence in which he says, why can't you have second chances? Why can't you have do-overs? Because that's what he so terribly needs. He's eating himself alive with guilt about Kath and Julia and all his failures, that he has to believe there's some sort of making up for that in life. And that's where he's the foil of Jay. Who, I don't know, is Jay supposed to be the lead? I feel like Pope is the lead at least after Smurf dies. But Jay is the foil, someone who's so unfeeling, doesn't want to believe in second chances, because if he allowed that kind of thinking in his life, if he allowed space for forgiveness in his world, he would never do the things he does. I think Jay is a straight up monster. You know, some people push back and like, Pope killed Kath. It's like, well, Jay's a murderer in a much worse sense because A, he doesn't have mental health issues. B, he wasn't like literally trained as a child to hurt people by his mother. And C, he's just so calculated and decides at every opportunity he's given by Pope. Pope often goes to him and tries to have a connecting moment, tries to tell him what it was like for them as children, tries to talk to him about his mom. Jay shuts it down. And I think that's because if Jay were honest about anything that's happening around him, he would not carry through with what he does in the show. I think this is gonna have to be a second episode of the podcast where I break down like Jay and what happened in the show and the arc of the story. But for now, it's really just about how one character, one performance can elevate a project so much, where I think like the show's good. It's very good. And everyone's doing great with what they're being given. Sean's just being given more and then hitting it out of the park constantly over and over again, playing this really complicated thing. And people could have played it too, I don't want to say, like, I don't know what the word is. It would have been easy to go too far, to almost make a caricature out of this guy. Instead, it just feels so heartbreakingly human so much of the time. And I think the audience clearly responds to it because they just see how many people root for him. And root for him as this guy who really isn't, you know, doing some great things on screen to warrant that in a lot of ways. But then again, I do think, you know, the reward is how hard the audience roots for this guy. At least from what I've seen. I'm definitely in an echo chamber where I'm posting about how awesome this character is and people are like, yeah, he's awesome. But I've had responses where people like Jay or hate Pope, and I've tried to understand their perspective. It's not common though. It's just so interesting to me to see how many people root for him. And I do think because it's this fully internally realized character where we can see, not because it's explained to us through his trauma, but we can see in the performance what's happening internally with this person. And it's so clear that you can't help but be on his side, because what is happening inside is that he does want to take care. He does want to help. He is in his heart good, but he's in this situation that requires caretaking to be violence and loyalty to be violence. And then you add all the psychosexual abuse on top of it. That's not great. And then his need for meds, which he often can't get. That is my one bone to pick with this character. I do have a larger bone to pick with the show around some of the women characters, but my one bone to pick with the show about Pope is don't love healing him of his need of meds by doing an ayahuasca trip in the desert with some crazy lady. I'm totally pro psychedelics in trauma treatment by professionals, but that was not it for me. It's fiction, so whatever. I just was like, eye roll. But it was an interesting mechanism to get where they wanted to be in season 6. My take is that they needed a version of Pope in season 6 that was approaching being happy. You know, the skating, a date with Amy. Things were going pretty well, like wasn't having fugue states and wasn't finding himself violently attacked or attacking people, so that then when the bad things happen to him in season 6, it feels even worse. So I respect that we needed to get there. We needed to get the audience there, but I don't love the mechanism we used. I did find it funny that as I live posted this watch, a lot of the women were responding, I can fix him. I always appreciate that joke because it is rooted in the fact that women have learned that they cannot indeed fix men. But the comedy of it being, you could probably fix Pope. Like, if you could extricate this character from his situation and get him therapy and meds and away from these people, I think he'd be fine. Like, it's my solid belief now. Does he need to be punished for what he did? Probably, maybe in the real world, but in the world of the show and me rooting for him, let me tell you, that first detective dude who showed up and was like, yeah, I'll make a deal with Smurf while she's in prison, but Pope has to go to jail forever because he's the bad one. And I was like, well, you can just go ahead and die. Okay? Like, don't be messing with my favorite character. Don't do that. If you do that to me, in my book, you're dead. But it's been interesting to see that, the women really want to save Pope. And again, I think it's because he's internally realized, because they could all just be swooning over every other hot guy who lives in this family. Like, it's just like a family of hot dudes. But the real love out there is for Pope and his heart and the way that he really tries to show for everybody, even though none of them deserve it. Maybe Darren a little bit. But all jokes aside, I don't think this is down to crushes on characters. I think there's just a very well written character where there's like a tangible purity to his actions, even when he's murdering people, where we understand and we forgive him and accept him. It's really amazing. A bunch of people also commented about how they can't believe he never got an Emmy. I think, at least an Emmy nom, I think it's just down to like TNT shows don't get considered for Emmys, or maybe don't campaign for them. It's not their thing. You have to campaign for awards. Hopefully they're won on merit, but definitely if you don't campaign for them as a studio, you don't get them. And they don't just hand them out. So I don't know that there's a mechanism at TNT for doing this, because I don't know, I might be wrong. I don't know any TNT shows that have any Emmys or Golden Globes. But yeah, this is just an extraordinary character where we balance savagery and being scary with being somehow the moral compass and heart of the whole show and the family. And the would-be protagonist, Jay, to me is the villain. It's fascinating piece of writing in my mind. And I think Pope sums it up at the end by saying, you are who you are and you did what you did. And that is, when people have pushed back on me on Jay, saying like, what's so wrong with Jay? Like, he doesn't admit who he is. And Pope, again, is so aware. He sees everything. He doesn't lie about who he is to himself. He doesn't lie to people about who they are. He gives it to people very straight. He tells Darren, you've been trying to get away the whole time since you were a kid. He tells Smurf how awful she is to her face. He tells Jay, you are who you are and you did what you did. Like, stop hiding behind this story that your mom would have wanted something like this. I don't think his mom would have wanted him to bring about the death or incarceration of the one person she loved, her twin brother. So for that alone, Pope is miles and stretches better than Jay, and to me the real hero of the story, although he sadly meets his demise. I don't know that I love that ending. It's a hard ending. When I rewatch this, it might be one of the few shows where I just like shut it down a few episodes early and don't rewatch the ending, because it's a true bummer to have Pope eat it. Like, no thank you. So that's it on this conversation for Animal Kingdom. Really a conversation about characters elevating shows. You should check out Merlin. I don't know that I can say that you should check out Yellowstone, but you should definitely check out, if you listen to this and you didn't check out Animal Kingdom, weird. Love you. Yeah, I think I'm headed into a rewatch of The Pit, to be honest. I watched season 2 without rewatching season 1. I say that without rewatching season 1 right before it. I've seen season 1 many times. If I like a show at all, I've seen it like 10 times. So I think I might head into a Pit rewatch and might do one more episode on Animal Kingdom on the larger context of this show, the story and everything. Or I might just head straight into The Pit, because that's a great one. I love The Pit. Thanks for listening. Stay cool.